Hey y'all, so if you've watched my videos before, you know that this is the first time you're hearing my voice. But I figured I would give my shot at trying to do a voiceover because I really wanted to talk about this particular build. This one was done for Hip Hip Renee's Hip Hip Shell 502 Shell Challenge. And I had an idea about putting a modern house, embedded in like the rock of the mountain, and it would not leave me alone, and so I figured this would be the best time to try it. And it was really fun, really tedious as far as getting the rocks at just the right spots, especially in the raised terrain, but I think it turned out really great, and I really hope you guys like it. So for some reason, you can't really copy a whole build, onto a different level. So I had to, copy it room by room basically to get it up that high, and then just delete everything underneath it. And I really, discovered that I like using the raised terrain. I hadn't used it in previous years whenever I, used to build in The Sims. Not in The Sims 1, 2, 3, or 4, whenever we had it. I don't think we had it in The Sims 1, but, I've discovered a new love for it. It gives so much more depth to all the builds. I don't use it every time, but I'm finding that when I do use it, I like to build a lot more than if I don't. And I never used the fountain tool until maybe a couple weeks ago, and now I just can't stop. I think it's a really great way to add, little ponds or things. And I know that we used to be able to, lower the terrain in The Sims 3, and then, it would fill it with water. And I really like that way of, making ponds, but, using the fountains and adding some rocks around it, not so bad. So this staircase, I hate doing staircases that, go above, the second floor, just because it's kind of hard to get it looking nice, and there's nothing underneath it, and you have to be careful about what you put, near it, otherwise it's gonna be a hot mess. And I'm not really, I really like how it came out. It's just, I wish you could put some kind of foundation underneath it, like stilts. I feel like that would be a little more realistic, but having the terrain raise up and kind of embed itself in there, I think that turned out really well. So I wanted to use the shell from Hip Hip Renee as the main part of the house, but I figured, it's a little small for everything that I wanted, so I figured I'd make a pool house and a deck with the pool a little lower. And, that could be the pool house, that could be a guest house, you could, rent it out, if that's part of a story that you want to do. And, it's really cute. It's a small little space. It's got a small kitchen, not really a dining area, but, the Sims hardly ever eat at their dining areas anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So I put this staircase here, and I really like that spot. And then I brought in my Sims to play with it, and I think you'll see it a little later in the video, but they could not get down to the bottom, and I don't know why. I moved things around, I made sure there's nothing underneath it, but they just would not go down to that deck. So I had to change it and move it onto the roof. And as far as, pulling these rocks from debug, I think it's just great that we can do that, because I like the little rocks that we get, but the ones in the foliage, with the trees and all that stuff, there's only so much you can do with those. And so I like that we can pull things from the rest of the game, and it looks like it's part of the game, but you can use it whatever way you want to. And I'm really happy that we can use the bracket keys to make them bigger or not, because some of them, when I put them up, you couldn't see anything. If I couldn't put them down, I don't know what I was going to do. But, it's a little difficult trying to put them where they are as far as where the terrain is raised up, just because, it's acting like that's the top layer. And so I had to go underneath the build a couple times, well, more than a couple times really, to put them in the spot that I wanted. But you know, once you get the hang of it, it's a little easier than it looks. And I actually did cut out a lot of video as far as me placing the rocks in the terrain, because oh my god, this build, I think it took me about 8 hours to complete, not including, you know, playtesting and editing while I playtested. But I think maybe 4 or 5 of those hours was just placing all the boulders and the rocks. Like, I spent so much time on the terrain, and I think it was worth it because it really does, I think, in my opinion, look like it's part of a mountain. I wish it was a little further back, but you know, that's the lot limits. But the nice thing about the boulders and the rocks from Debug is that a lot of them don't take up a lot of tile space, so you can move them further back than what the lot size allows, which is really cool. So I had to get a little creative putting this pool in because it wouldn't allow me to put it down as it was, you know, with the foundation as stilts. So I had to make a separate room on top of the deck, change the foundation on that, and then add the pool in and remove the walls in order to get the pool down there, because I did not want an above ground pool. And I wish I could change the foundation underneath it, but you know, they can't walk under there, so it's not like anybody's really going to notice. Who's really looking underneath the foundation anyway? But I did like the fact that it would let me put the rocks, you know, kind of in there too. I wanted it to look like it was, you know, built into the mountain. And I wish we had more stone walls, more swatches of that. But I think I used the ones from Jungle Adventure, and you know, those were a good alternative to what I was imagining without custom content. And you know, I like how it turned out. I'm not a swimmer, but for some reason I always like to have my Sims swim. I don't know, I guess I like to have them do things that I don't do. It's weird, I know. Now, I figured that the little edge, you know, of the main shell, you know, that little lip right there, I didn't think that the Sims could walk up there, even though it looks like it's, you know, one tile. I mean, not one tile, but, you know, a step up. And it turns out I was right. They can't get up there without a little step added to it. And I think it's because I raised it a little using the raise foundation toggle when I was setting it up, and so it's not quite flat on like I think it's the 4th level. So you know, they did need a step, and then I had to add a creative way to get them on the other side, because originally I was going to have them be able to walk around to the other side of the shell where it's kind of open. But you'll see how that turned out. I didn't do that at all. They have to walk through the house to get to the other side with the open deck area. But it's not bad. And then here, yeah, so here is me changing the steps because they would not go down there. I don't know why. I think it's maybe because it was facing the rocks, but they don't really acknowledge those rocks from debug. I mean, I've seen them swim right through them before. So I don't know what was up with that. But yeah, here I am putting them in the pool because I wanted them out of my way during building. And it's kind of weird that you can't just pick them up and put them where you want to. But if you move things that they're using, they'll stand up. I just didn't want them inside the houses while I was working. And so now I'm trying to, put stilts, well, kind of stilts. Having to use some of the columns, to give the stairs a little bit of a look of support. Just because, they were floating and there's no way that would hold up in the real world. And it just kind of bugs me when little things like that exist in the game, because then it kind of takes me out of it. I know it's fake and all, but I try to give builds as real a look as I can. And then, I'm just trying to figure out what kind of fence I want to use. I really, really like the green tint to the glass on these fences. I just think it's a little different, gives it a little more, character to the build instead of just, plain glass. So here is the outside deck that I wanted them to get to, from the outside of the house, but, they have to go inside and go through the house to get to it. And it kind of changed up the layout of how I wanted the inside of the house to look a little bit. But I think my solution to that, I actually found I like that a lot better. I really like those green wood planks for the floor. I just could not get them to work with what I wanted. I mean, I want to use them one day, but this was not the build for that. So I put that door there thinking that they could walk out there, but they couldn't, and I didn't want to put a step out there. So here I am testing out to see where they'll go. And yeah, they had to walk around the outside, kind of through the rocks, and that's not the look I was going for. And I actually came up with something I thought was better in the end as far as that space goes. So I made a little outside cabana, and I liked that bar. It was just a little too long, so eventually it will change. But I cut off that part of the house and made it a little outdoor patio. They can eat out there, watch the sunset. If they have parties, it's a good spot to be. And they don't have to go all the way down to the lower deck area just to be outside. And then I had to use the spa day doors, which turned out really well, but I wish we had more tall or medium doors that were 1 tile wide. I just couldn't find any that I really liked, and I think the few options that I had didn't fit the look of the house I wanted. But I do like the fact that the glass is tinted for the spa day doors. I didn't want it to be exactly see-through because, they're in the desert, and I figure any kind of shade they can get, it's best. So if you've seen any of my previous builds, I think you'll recognize that I put a lot of windows in most of my builds, and I know a lot of people don't like that, but I can't stand a place that does not have a lot of windows. The last few places I've lived, in the last, I want to say, decade, not a lot of windows, not a lot of natural light, which doesn't bother me for some things, but I don't want to be in the dark all the time, so I tend to give my builds a lot of natural light. I just think, it gives it a really nice look inside, and I don't have to try to find a bunch of lamps and, other kinds of lighting just to get it lit up. Now I'm just putting on the finishing touches. I'm pretty much done with the build at this point. So after all of this, I'm going to play test it before I post it to the gallery. And I really hope you guys like it. This was a work of love for me, and I could actually see myself living here. So I figure if I can see myself living there, I'm happy with the build. And I hope you guys will be happy too. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you guys come back for the next one. Bye!